Okay, hello traders, welcome to today's video. Monday, the 17th of June, 2024, and yeah, starting the week off with a bit of a move down here on Bitcoin. So where we are locally, we're still at the midpoint of this entire range, essentially. So if we look from our low to our high, we are still consolidating around this midpoint of the entire range. What we have seen previously, and this is for the majority of the year so far, is that Mondays have tended to be our more bullish days. And then at least recently, we've had this situation where we get this move up on a Monday and then we just get a big move down for the majority of the rest of the week. It's very similar to what we saw last week, where we had that spike up on Monday, which took some local highs. The rest of the week was bearish. The Monday before that was a nice pump on the Monday, and then the rest of the week was a move down. I believe even the Monday before that was a nice move up on the Monday, and then, okay, we were at a decent reversal at that point. But on this occasion, starting off with quite a bearish move here, at least locally, with BTC struggling to hold around that support that it had managed to sustain over the weekend and after the bounce that we've had on Friday. Now, if we're looking at the levels here, we are just a little bit in the middle of nowhere. So it has been kind of holding this anchored VWAP from the low, and it's done something fairly similar to what we saw from our previous lows, but on a lower time frame. So if we look at the last pivot, right, where we had back in January of this year, feels like it was a long time ago, where there was this correction, it was holding this anchored VWAP, it then dropped below it for a little while, and then reclaimed, and then was consolidating before this move up, which never went and took the highs. Okay, you would still be expecting with a trending move like this for it to get continuation, and that isn't what we have seen. So often when you have these big trending moves, you would expect like that continuation of the trend. So as long as we're holding this VWAP for now, this could still like consolidate back here, and you would be looking for that continuation higher. However, what we've seen on these lower time frames is something kind of similar, right? We had the low that was put in back on the 1st of May, decent bounce, consolidation around there, and then you're holding, you move below it slightly, and I do think we could go a little bit deeper, a little bit lower still here. But then, yeah, a reclaim and then continuation on for what we hope would be to start to take some of the highs above where price is right now. So from that perspective, okay, the price action's looking relatively similar. Like I know back here people were getting really quite bearish that things were going to be going a lot lower, and we're in a similar situation right now where I think there's a lot of fear within the market. There is, yeah, just a lot of bearish sentiment around, and it's hard to get over that because prices are reflecting that bearish sentiment for the time being. And as long as we are still moving down here, at least from Bitcoin and especially on the altcoins, I do believe that we could still be seeing slightly lower before we see any major recovery here. So where I am looking at, and this has been the target for a while since this started to break down, even like a couple of weeks ago, there was the short position that was taken from up here, where it came and took the highs, didn't do it on spot, but did do it on perps. So I still do believe at some point the market comes and takes out these highs. But then, yeah, since last week when we had the lack of strength from what has been fairly bullish news, like inflation coming down and all of those kind of things, none of these moves were sustained throughout last week. And yeah, I have been targeting a move down to the 64k area since then. So we had a bounce off of 66. Now what that did was take out some local lows here. So of course we had this upper half of the range and around that POC. And what I was looking for was for like, okay, it's fine if we drop down here, but what we've got to do is recover immediately and then go on and take these highs. It hasn't happened. We now see this consolidation below essentially what we would have considered as support. So when you look at this range and you kind of split it up, you have what was, at least for like the last month or so, or a couple of months here, we had this resistance. You flip it into support, testing that a bit. And now we're almost caught back within this lower half of the range again here. So when you draw the channel, we are below that 50% mark. Okay, we're below the point of control at this stage. And it's starting to come into this area of low volume, which, as long as we are below here, you would expect all of this area to fill out a little bit more. So I am looking for this continuation at this stage lower to take us down towards that 63 to 64K area. So at the moment, like, no, it has been a change over the past couple of weeks. I thought that we may be able to hold here and get that move up. I still considered this area very likely to get hit, but for my own kind of strategy was that we would take out all-time highs again first. We had the deviation below the lows of the range. I was then expecting a deviation at the highs, and then I was looking for this move down, and then maybe like that is a long drawn out bearish kind of summer, and then we come back Q3, Q4 of this year. However, we never took the highs, obviously, and we find ourselves coming down here straight away. Now, overall, I don't think that's a bad sign. I think that actually dealing with this imbalance that's on the chart, dealing with this 63 to 64K area, if it can, and if it holds around here, maybe coming down to that value area low, holding around here, is actually more bullish in the long term, because what that means is that then everything within this range is just, or at least for now, all right, we don't know what could happen next. It could come down here, immediately create these big gaps again and go for the highs, and then we still have to come back and sort them out. But if we do see just a long, grinding, painful, slow bleed down into support that gradually gets recovered, I do think that that could lead us towards a very strong breakout later on, towards the end of summer, like I say, Q3, Q4 of this year. So I think that's more where I'm leaning towards at the moment, is just a bit of a wasteland for now. I think there's been too much damage done, especially with altcoins, to be expecting an immediate recovery from this. And I think that bleed could just, it's just that like long, slow, painful death that is the most difficult thing within the market, until we see some spark from somewhere. So if we're looking at levels below, it is very, very clear. Okay, it's that 64 to 63K region. And then we have confluence down there with the value area low of our range. And at some point, I do think if we are going to go into this gap, it will fill all of it. And we will find that it has some acceptance within this order block that we have below there. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to come back down and we're going to go back below 60 again. We're going to go back below 56K again. But I do feel that if we are to come down here, it could be one of these where we just end up just chopping around for a long time and gradually just managing to reclaim that range afterwards. So those are the levels below. And other than that, there's not a whole lot that we really need to be looking at in terms of support. Now, if this does reverse here, which it could do, okay, if we look at where this is, it has come down into an area where, right, and I'll show on the order flow in a minute, there are long positions and there was initiative to move this higher and to get that continuation higher. And the fact that we haven't come down into this gap could be, if we do start to see some strength, and if it can get sustained, could actually be really nice, because there's long positions defending this zone, and we can see that there was clear initiative to push this price higher. And as of yet, we're still just holding within, I guess, this bigger range that's going on, right? We are at the low still of this range, and we could still be seeing that move back towards the highs. Now, locally, the other problem that we've got is that we do just keep testing back into points of control and back into clean up any imbalance that's within this downtrend, and then we do eventually end up going lower. So from a TPO perspective, what we can see, so this is still on the Bitcoin chart, but I've just cleaned it up and just showing you the TPO here, is that for each move down that we have, all right, there is then a move up that comes back in to test the point of control and also to clean up any imbalance that has been left behind. So you see here a gap, single print that was created on the move down. You then have a rise that comes back into the point of control. It then drops again. Okay, and then what does that leave? It leaves a point of control around here. What has happened over the weekend is there has been a move up perfectly back into that point of control there at 67k. Okay, and then once again we are seeing that drop lower. So last week, all right, there was the big move down, and even back here, okay, you had this. Well, this was the FOMC stuff. So this is a lot of the stuff we could start looking at if there is to be a reversal. But yeah, at least from last week, a move down, creates imbalances, test the point of control, drop lower, and then we're coming back in, filling the imbalances, test the point of control, and as of yet, so far, dropping lower. So we do have some support. There is a naked volume POC. Now, on that Friday evening from last week, there was clearly a lot of volume that accumulated around those lows. Okay, this being around 65,450. So if there is to be a move down into this high volume node, then that could potentially give us a bounce. If the market is to do, I guess, on these lower time frames, what it did on these higher time frames with everyone expecting the lows to be taken, but they're not, that could be an area to start to look at. So if I take off the TPO here and just let's add on the session volume profile, because you can see that a little bit clearer. And also, let me do this on the Coinbase chart. We can see the volume that had accumulated down there. If it's going to load up. There we go. So there is your POC. It was a very clear volume point of control down here around about that 65,450 area. So maybe this holds. And as you can see, like previous POCs, they have been tested, and this could hold and get a decent bounce here. It would be an area in which you could start to target some long positions with an invalidation at this low, because realistically, the value for there to be shorts taken right now is not really there, unless you'd caught a short on like Sunday or very early this morning when there was a little bit of a spike up, wasn't there? There was. So on your weekly open, you have a bit of a spike up, and then you just drop down, and then surprise, surprise, it's that VWAP that's just holding price down here. If you are to look for these positions, then the long would make a little bit of sense here. Okay, so if you're looking for that long from like 65,450, like I say, and we're looking at that low to hold, then you could start to maybe think about it taking out some of these highs. But I think from a probability perspective, it still seems fairly low here. And what I would probably prefer to do is to miss the first move, okay, to accept that this is maybe a little bit sketchy. But then if you do see a reclaim, okay, you're going to have nice levels to work off of, weekly open, then you've got a decent invalidation down here, and then you've seen that recovery from the market, you've seen that strength, you've seen that reversal. which would then give you more confidence in which to get into a trade. Because what we seem to be doing right now is just getting opportunities to take long positions, and then the market just takes it out, and then it just runs stops. It just ends up liquidating people, and we just keep on going lower. And the higher probability is, I would say, is still that we do go down into this 64 to 63k zone at this stage, unless we see some recovery from this. So as I keep saying, these things can change very, very quickly. All right, the market was, just looking back to Friday the 7th of June, the market was very bullish. I'm sure everyone's portfolio was looking great back then. All right, and then literally within the space of an hour, okay, you could have gone from like plus 20-30% unrealized P&L or something, a load of long positions looking great, and then it just disappears. And that's how quickly these things can change. We didn't take the highs on all exchanges, especially on Coinbase here. So we do have that double top up here. Are we going to see a situation where it's just as weird at the lows, where we have maybe, we can be looking at this as a bit of a double bottom, and then we can come back down and we can still make a very marginally higher low, and then suddenly we get this reversal that takes us back to the highs again. It is that kind of market right now where it's so thin, there's so few people trading this, that it is just in the hands of people and that have a lot more money than us. We can't really affect this market right now, and we've just got to react to what is given to us when it happens. So we're in that kind of environment where literally, anything can happen. Anything can happen. If we have a quick look on the order flow, and we have a look over here, if I just change this, we can have a look at the ETF. Of course, there was small outflows again from the ETFs, which, I mean, given what we'd seen last week, nothing too scary. This is pretty normal. Small outflows over there. We do now have an increasing spot premium, which would suggest that this overall is a good area to be buying for the long term, right? But what we saw previously is that this can and likely will play out for quite a while, okay, where we had this just long accumulation down here at these lows, and maybe this something similar could play out where we do just have this type of situation play out, which eventually I'm very, very confident does lead to a move up, all right, and a breakout towards 80k, 90k, 100k. I'm very confident it doesn't lead to that, but this pain, at least short term to medium term, over the next few weeks or so, until we see something decisive like we saw at the beginning of May, where we had that big reversal, like we saw back in October of last year. Until we see that kind of event, then it's just much of the same kind of price action. Now, another reason that could be a little bit more bullish, but again, it does mean bullish with a slightly longer view on this, is that throughout this entire range, okay, we have been seeing an increase in net short positions and a decrease in net long positions. And we are seeing that on this move down, the open interest has been cooling off somewhat, suggesting that longs are getting to that point where they're completely fed up. And it is just this continuous, okay, CVD is creating these bullish divergences. Net longs are down, net shorts are up. When this does start to squeeze, and it will do at some point, okay? This doesn't mean that we're going to 50K, we're going to 40K, no. I think the worst case scenario, we go down to like low 60s. But at some point, right, when this starts reversing, it can be a very quick reversal, and it means that there'll be a lot of short positions on the wrong side of the market, and it means that we're likely to see a clean break of all-time highs at last, which then will get continuation towards 80, 90, 100K without looking back before we start to go into another range, maybe a little bit like we've seen so far. Well, so far this spring/summer. Yeah, overall, I don't think there's anything more to say here. When we do look at news this week, it's a very, very quiet week. So we just have the typical unemployment claims on Thursday. There is a bank holiday on Wednesday. Is that Juneteenth day or something? Why there's a bank holiday on Wednesday in the US? That's a weird day. But something along those lines. And then there's some retail sales news coming out as well. So yeah, a bit of a quiet news week. Not many catalysts for to spark something, but what that means is we could see something from within the crypto industry and outside of the macro, like big Fed news. There could be something within the crypto industry, like an ETH ETF, for example, that could give a spark that may see a recovery. But overall, yeah, news is quiet, so expecting fairly low volume across the board, and maybe just a bit more of this bleed that we have been seeing recently. So on that note, I think that's probably everything I have to say. So yeah, short-term bear / neutral, because we are at the lows of the range. I just don't see an opportunity for a long position right now. But long term, I still think, yeah, we're fine. We just got to ride this out. And if we do have to ride it out for the whole summer, so be it. Gives us more time to accumulate some nice spot bags, some nice positions for what I do believe will be a very bullish Q3, Q4 this year. Thank you very much for watching. Let's hope very soon there'll be more fun, excitement, bullish market updates to come. But I am going to wrap it up there, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers. Bye-bye.